The Rockies swept somebody. Their season is saved. The Pirates sweep the Phillies, and the Phillies' season is canceled. The Roman Empire is here in Boston, and also in the East, the Rays and Jays are clicking. The Royals are jacking it like there's no tomorrow with Jack Caglianone. Ryan Weathers survives an assassination attempt pregame by his own catcher and survived it so hard he's now on the IL with a lat injury. My name's Taco Josh. That right there is America's pitching coach. It's Justin Arth, and this is your episode of Baseball Adjacent. All of that and more is going to be talked about, but first things first, Justin, how are you feeling today?
The sky is falling in Atlanta, and we'll probably get into that too. But yeah, the Braves stink right now, and my world is collapsing.
Yeah, it's not been great. Not been great. One of the notes I had for this week's show, they called up like 89-year-old Craig Kimbrell, and then they cut 89-year-old Craig Kimbrell, and then the Rangers today actually signed him to a minor league deal. I don't know if you saw that yet, but it's happening. Things are happening in baseball. I guess let's stick in the NL East to start. Let's head out to Philly. We'll hit Atlanta in a little bit. Philly is having some tough times. They are 2-8 in their last 10 games. They lose tonight as we record this, so I guess they're 2-9 in their last 11 because that has happened after I made notes. This has allowed the Mets to just open up a wild lead in the NL East. Things are just not going well for them. They got swept by the Brewers. They went 1-2 against Toronto. They got swept by the Pirates. They've lost a game to the Cubbies. Aaron Nola won't throw for 2 weeks. He has like a stress fracture in his rib, it looks like. Things are not going well in Philly. What do you think is causing that?
Well, as the Atlanta Braves fan here, I will say that the Spencer Strider hitting Bryce Harper in the elbow doesn't help because Bryce has been in and out of that lineup. I think when I was looking earlier, he only has 14 plate appearances
Yeah.
in this 2-9 stretch that they're currently in. I'm not sure if he played tonight, but I think he's out. Didn't look at today, but either way, like he's had 13 plate appearances. The injury doesn't help, so that bat's not in the lineup. Overall, their statistics don't look terrible, but as a team, they're averaging 21.5 K per nine from the hitters' perspective, and then an 8.3 walk percentage. So they're not getting a ton of guys on base. Batting averages during this stretch are okay because some of their games, like the 17-7 loss to the Brewers that they had, they kind of hit the ball and that kind of inflated numbers. But they're not hitting the ball tremendously well. Obviously, not as bad as the Atlanta Braves or other teams that we might talk about here in a minute. But then I think their bullpen, the back half of their bullpen, Jordan Romano, Matt Strom, Kerkering, like they haven't been great. Romano's been worse overall compared to Strom and Kerkering, but Kerkering, because I've got him in fantasy, ended up blowing a lead earlier this past week too in one of those. So the back into the bullpen's not great right now. And then unless your name is Sanchez or Suarez, none of their starters have been performing in this stretch either. I mean, we just talked about the injury to Nola, but the other guys like Zach Wheeler, I think Zach Wheeler had like a 6-something ERA during this stretch since May 29th when this kind of 2-9 stretch began. So yeah, the Phillies have some problems. They're only 4.5 back from the Mets, even with this bad 2-9 stretch. So they're not out of it by any means, and this Phillies team is way too good. They'll be right back in the race. But there's they've got to figure something out over the next couple days, weeks, but they'll be perfectly fine.
Yeah, the every team in baseball goes through a 2-10, 3-7 stretch at some point in the season. I think the thing that compounds it for Philly, and maybe the thing that's making it feel worse than losing the games, is at the same time the Mets have gone 8-2 in their last 10. So you've gone from it being a tight race, like a tight division race there, to, like you said, 4.5 back, 5.5 back potentially now, because I think the Mets walked off tonight and the Phillies dropped another one. So They're in a tough spot. I won't lie to you. I do agree they're gonna turn it around. The Mets are gonna have a 3-7 stretch at some point in July or August or September that tightens it back up, and then we got a crazy race to the finish. But back to the Harper thing, because he's been out. I think he got hit in the elbow. He had wrist inflammation for a second. I think that's why he's currently out, which I think is
Yep.
unrelated to the hit by pitch, I would have to assume. Uh, when that happens, when you have one of your big stars, one of your big bats are out, the second tier guys kind of have to step up, and that just has not happened for
No.
Philly. I'm looking at JT Realmuto has hit 222 in their last 11. He's got a 41 WRC plus. For those of you guys maybe that aren't stat heads, 100 is average, uh, and so 41 you're pretty considerably below
60
that. That's an
points
F
under
grade.
league average. Yeah.
Bryson Stott hitting 114. He's got a negative 24 WRC plus, so he's not even at zero,
It's
which
not
is
even a
not
minor leaguer.
good. Those are guys that you would want to be hitting better than they are to make up for the Harper absence, I guess, and they just are not. And I think that's honestly a big part of it. They scored 1 run in 4 of their 5 games against the Jays and the Pirates. It's just not, it's going to be awfully hard to win baseball games when you don't score more than 1 run. I will cite
Mhm.
both the Rangers and the Braves season in that statistic because it's not easy to do. It's awfully hard to win a game when you're only scoring 2 or 3 runs, but when you score 1 run in 4 of 5 in a time during this down stretch, it's near impossible.
The Phillies have enough bats. They have enough talent. Their pitching staff's good enough where these guys they'll get it right, and they'll be perfectly fine.
Yeah, I don't have a doubt that they're gonna snap out of it. They're gonna be fine. Like they're gonna make the playoffs. That's not a question. It
That's pretty
cut
much
to
a lot.
this in 6 months when they are not in the playoffs somehow and things have just spiraled. Uh, I do think they're fine. They're gonna make the playoffs. At a minimum, they're gonna be in the wild card because I just don't see a way that that doesn't happen. There's still a real shot they win the division. It's
And
just a
there's still a
tough.
good chance that the Mets are going to Met. So
Yeah,
the Philly might be right where they need New York.
yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how they're able to snap out of it. If Harper comes back, is that an immediate like, okay, the Phillies are back? Uh, does Harper need a second? Maybe. Does Stott need to like sit for a second? Does Real Muto need to sit for a second? Like, there are people in the lineup hitting, in spite of some of the stats we've rolled out. But some of the other guys just are not, and the team as a whole just is not clicking right
Yeah,
now.
it's just not consistent enough because their pitchers are giving up 6 or 7 a game, and at best you're scoring 2 or 3. That's not going to win you baseball games.
Yeah, it's a deadly combo, not being able to score runs and also allowing a whole lot of runs is not a recipe for success long term. And speaking of that, let's get into some Braves talk because you said you had some stuff, and
Yeah.
that is pretty much the Braves recipe for the season. It looks like.
Yeah. Now, if you include today's game, we now have a perfect 0 run differential because we lost by 3 today. But we had a +3 run differential and our 10 games under 500. So the pitching overall has been really good, except for the back end of that bullpen. Rysel Iglesias has not been good. Pierce Johnson is kind of taking over the co-closer role and has not been good in that role. And it's just the back end of the bullpen's kind of blowing games. The Braves are what 9-19 now in 1 run games, which is tied with the Giants for the most 1 run games in baseball. Which obviously we were doing them against the Giants. But each and every night we seem to find a new low, as Tom Glavine had said after one of our losses. Every night gets worse and worse. They find a different way to lose. But it's this offense is not hitting well. Like some stats that kind of didn't necessarily blow my mind, but obviously I'm putting numbers to it. Over this 3-16 stretch the Braves have been on since May 20th, they have a strike or what is it? 12 of their 15 qualified batters.
Mhm.
Anyone who has taken an at bat for the Atlanta Braves. Uh, 12 of their 15 batters have a strikeout percentage of 20% or more. The three that are not are Ozzy Albies, which is at 15%, which is better than the rest of the team, but 15% is average. That's okay. And he's got a nice, 20 game on base streak or whatever going on for Ozzy. Um, but Drake Baldwin, another in the lineup consistently, but doesn't play every day. And then I believe it was Stuart Fairchild, who has a broken pinky and has not been a defensive replacement in at least a week. So that doesn't look good when you're striking out 20% of the time on average as a team, or at least 20% or higher. And then you look at where those strikeouts are happening too. It's happening when you get runners in scoring position. They are getting guys on base better as of late, but they're not hitting with runners in scoring position. They're striking out when it means the most. And no matter how good Chris Sale has been, no matter how good the starters overall has been, whether your name's Bryce Elder, AJ Smith-Shawver, who's now down with Tommy John surgery and officially had that yesterday, um, Spencer Schwellenbach, Strider is obviously not performing well at all. And that really sucks to say because he's not come back from the Tommy John surgery, or at least the internal brace that he had. It's just tough. Like, the offense isn't scoring runs, and you can't really 100% pinpoint to why. They're good players. They've got baseball cards, but nothing's really clicked since the 2024 season, and it's starting to get alarming as a Braves fan. Is it the complacency of long-term contracts? Is it Alex Anthopoulos not adding better people in the offseason, and the only guy he does sign gets popped with PEDs, if we can even say that on the podcast? It's tough right now. I mean, you'd like to add more back of the end bullpen help, and I thought Craig Kimbrell was going to be that. But he was only throwing 92, 93 miles an hour and did not have a clean inning at all, even though at the end of the day he gave up no runs in the one inning he had. It wasn't great either, so I understand why you DFA him. But as a longtime Braves fan, one of the closer that I grew up on in a way, like it's tough to see that happen too. So, and then maybe Snit needs to be blamed as well for maybe being kind of Sleepy Joe or Sleepy Snit a little bit, not paying attention to the game. But what more can a manager do when your guys aren't hitting or anything like that? The only thing you can take blame for is what relievers you throw in. So, and overall, I think he's doing a good job at managing a bullpen that Alex Anthopoulos has not helped to give a better bullpen with Joe Jimenez out, AJ Minter being gone, stuff like that. And then obviously Raisel Iglesias not being good. So, yeah, sky's falling in Atlanta. Hope we turn it around. We got the people to do it. But we are, 13 and a half back of the division now, 9 or something
with
back of the wild
place.
card. I know the Mets last year were in an even worse position at this date last year and still turned it around. But the National League is even better this year. The National League East is even better this year than it was last year. There's not much more time to play around if they're going to turn it around. And to be honest with you, I don't even think they sell at the deadline, even if they are bad. Just trying to keep people in the stands.
The roster feels like, I mean, this always sound like a broken record because we talk about this every couple of weeks, but the roster feels good. Like it should be there, and it's just like they haven't gelled or they're just not firing on all cylinders.
Yes, and some
Like
of it could very well be mental. They know the pressure they put on themselves because, yeah, they threw away the World Series or bust from last year that AJ Minter coined. But it still is World Series or bust in Atlanta. This roster's too good. They're lined up long term with most of these guys. This team is too good to perform the way that they're performing, and they're putting pressure on themselves to do it. And the big kind of topic of conversation in Braves Twitter right now, or Braves X, whatever we call it now, is Matt Olson still being extremely unlucky. Like, if you go look at the Baseball Savant page, it's red everywhere, and it's deep red everywhere. It's on par with what he was doing in 2023, hitting the 50-plus home runs that he hit. But he's hitting 240 right now, or even under that, and the bombs aren't 100% there. He's had a kind of hot streak over this last maybe 6 or 7 days, where I think it's like 5 homers in the last week. But still, he's not producing, or he's not getting the production out of what the underlying stats are saying. and you can see the frustration in him anytime he gets a bad call or anytime he hits a 103-mile-an-hour ground ball or a line drive like he did tonight right to a fielder, like he's slamming the bat and going to the dugout and throwing the helmet, like and that's calm, cool, collected Matt Olson, and you're seeing emotion out of him too. So yeah, things aren't going right in Atlanta right now, and I'm not sure how they get better, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I it's interesting. It's a hellish spot to be in as a as a baseball org when you're like, man, the team should be loaded and we just aren't doing it. And you don't really know where to point the finger for blame or like, do we point the finger for blame? Is it Snit's fault? Is it AA's fault? Is it, are the bats just not there? Is it the hitting coach's fault? Is it, there's 100 different people whose fault it could be, but at the end of the day, you're not winning games.
Yep,
And that's just a brutal spot to be, especially when you're supposed to be winning games. I think it's a very
absolutely.
different thing, this conversation, if you're a team that's not supposed to be. I'll throw a team out there. Sorry, White Sox fans. But if you're the White Sox, right, and you're like, man, we just are not hitting, it's like, well, yeah.
You're
Like,
not supposed to. Look at
yeah,
that roster. It's
that,
just Luis Robert, and he's not even hitting. Mike Talkman's the best hitter on that team right now.
yeah, they got a pretty nice Chase Mydrith out there is
Oh yeah,
kind of
Chase Padres. Yep.
dominating. He's the guy. But everybody else, you're like, I don't know what you're expecting from this team. The Braves, for better or worse, had expectations coming into the year of like it's
A
a
lot of people are saying that's the team to beat the Dodgers in the National League.
it's a loaded NL East. You feel pretty reasonable about having a shot at winning the division at least the beginning of the year. You probably feel less good about that now. You felt pretty good about at least getting to second place and getting into a wild card almost for sure. And now all of that is in question because the lowly Washington Nationals, Washington, you'll have your day on the podcast soon, but they've jumped Atlanta, and that is just not a good thing considering where those two rosters and pitching staffs are looking at it in a bubble. Now, the Nationals are young. We've talked about this. There's hope for Washington coming. Where would
Yep.
they be without that Juan Soto trade, man?
Well, and to make it worse, when you look at the National League standings as of yesterday, because obviously games are finishing as we're doing the podcast, the Braves are only 3 games better than the Marlins and 1 game better than the Pirates. Obviously, we're not going to talk about the Rockies, but there's only really 2 other teams minus the Rockies that the Braves are better than record-wise right now in the National League, and it's not fun.
Yeah, it's a tough things are happening out in Atlanta and in Philly currently, but I guess Philly fans it could be worse. You could be a Braves fan. Shout out my co-host Justin. Maybe next week we'll pick a new team for him to root for down the stretch. That could be a fun
Maybe.
exercise. Submit your teams in the comment section below. Give us a like, by the way. Forgot to do that in the intro. We are working towards people liking the podcast. That feels like an attainable goal. So press that
Yeah.
button.
10 would be great for this podcast.
10 would be amazing. Short did well. People loved Carlos Santana in a thong. You can check that out on Shorts or on Instagram. Let's
Yeah.
move on to some happier times up north. A team that we were like, man, I don't know if we should expect anything, but they're suddenly in the playoff picture as we record this at least, and it's the Toronto Blue Jays. They're 11-3 in their last 14 games. Alejandro Kirk is kind of back to the guy he was like hyped up to be for a second. He's got the highest average exit velocity on the team over the last 14 games. Springer kind of looks like himself. He's got a 1.0 OPS since the May the 30th, so that's the last couple of weeks as we record this. Vlad not hitting well, but like the exit velocities are there, so you kind of feel like he'll turn around at some point. I mean, Clement, Barger, Springer, Straw, Jimenez is piecing it together. The pitching is doing just enough to get by. Things are looking up in Toronto. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, no, I think this team's being pushed on by that. I'm going to call the second tier of roster players that they have there in Toronto. Like you talked about Kirk, he's reemerging into the player that we kind of expected him to be. George Springer has kind of turned back the clock a little bit and is reminding us of what he did in Houston during the cheating scandal and all that other kind of stuff.
Yep.
But I mean, you've got Clement and Lukes and Barger. Like those guys are turning it on, and over this 14 game stretch, they're playing really well. Now, I guess let me toot my own horn, and maybe not my own, but my organization's horn. Obviously, the rest of the pitching staff in Toronto is doing their thing. They're solid 4 ERA or whatever over that stretch, and the offense is kind of bailing those guys out. But Jose Barrios is balling right now. Now,
Yep.
obviously, I've got a front seat to see that because I train or I partially train Jose Barrios, not me personally with him. I do have a hand in some of the pitch conversations and stuff that they have with our pitching mechanics and stuff. But my overhead, Rob Ambrose, is the one that's flying out to Tampa at their training facility whenever Jose's not in Toronto and things like that, and working with him on a weekly basis, having calls with him. The dude mechanically had one or two things to fix. The dude's a machine. Timing was an issue at one point. He was getting down into foot strike in 1.07, which was affecting some command, and yeah, the fly ball rate was a lot higher because he was slower to foot strike. Rob told him, "Hey, I want you to get to 1.04." Then that very next start, he consistently was 1.04 average from the first inning to the seventh inning, and in that seventh inning, he was actually 1.03. So the dude's a machine. He had to fix his front side glove this week, and then goes out and like shuts out the team he was playing just yesterday. So Jose is pitching at another level right now. One of the more underrated pitchers in baseball, and I guess you could say biased because I've got a hand in training him, but in reality, like he is one of the most underrated starting pitchers in baseball. He is the machine. Obviously, the nickname, the machine, is his nickname, but in Spanish, I can't remember exactly what that pronunciation is in Spanish. But no, the dude's on a tear right now, and when Jose Barrios starts, that's Jose Barrios win day for Toronto. And then it doesn't hurt that this offense is really firing on all cylinders right now with at least five of those nine guys in that lineup.
Yeah, I the offense is carrying for sure. The pitching, to me, looking at and having watched a handful of these games, or at least partial of these games, my takeaway has been the offense is kind of banging, like we talked about. There's a lot of guys clicking, which is a positive, and you got to win games when you have some of your lesser tier, lesser expected guys, the guys that you're not paying as much
Yeah, like your Bowden Francis's
to
and those guys. Yeah.
win. Yeah. You have to win some of those games. You have to take advantage of like when your depth is coming through, all that. Uh, and the pitching, it as a whole, as a collective team and unit, the pitching has not been the thing that's winning them games. They are doing enough to win games. They are there. They're doing enough to get by. But I don't think anybody's looking at this Blue Jays team and is like, man, this pitching staff collectively, where
Yeah,
would they be
collectively.
without these five starters? Like it's just
Yeah. Collectively, the other four starters are okay. We need offense today. That bullpen is even Jeff Hoffman, who I
yeah.
still have on my fantasy team. I know you dropped him, Josh,
I
but
yeah couldn't
yeah,
handle it.
as a whole, staff's not great, but they're good enough to get the job done with the offense mashing. But yeah, anytime Jose Barrios is on the mound, it's a guaranteed win right now.
Yeah, it's something to look forward to. They're in the playoff picture, and I at the beginning of the season, it was like, man, are they going to be close enough to
When are
buy
they
at the
selling off Bichette?
deadline?
When are they selling off Vladdy? And where are they going to go? Yeah.
Yeah, it was going to be like, do you go all in to try to re-sign Vladdy? But now they've already re-signed him, so they don't have that pressure. And then it was, well, if they're not there now, there's not the pressure to buy to convince Vladdy to stay because he's already staying, and now they're just in it. So now, I
Mhm.
mean, you we do a draft, not a draft, but like a trade episode at some point, a thing every team could add. Write that down in the notes section. Uh, it's interesting. It's interesting to me. I don't know that they obviously won't keep this 11-3 and 14 games clip going, but man, if they could even stay at about 500 the rest of the year and go on one more run, kind of like this, I mean, you're looking at a team that hits in the playoffs is scary to run
Yeah.
into.
And this is a team that has the makings of someone that could get hot at the right time and make a run.
Yeah.
And they can thank Boston and Baltimore for dropping the ball this year. Now, obviously, Boston's more due to injuries and things like that. But yeah, I mean, both Boston and Baltimore have opened up the door, and they both them and Tampa have taken advantage of it.
Yeah, it's interesting out in Toronto. It'll be an interesting thing to watch for. Let's move on to Boston. Uh, they called up Roman Anthony, their top prospect, I believe the top prospect in baseball. He went 0 for 4 with a walk in his debut. He had an RBI in that. He had a 2 RBI double tonight, I saw before we started recording this. What's your level of excitement, I guess, first, for him being in the big leagues?
Yeah, I mean, he's a very touted prospect, and he's got a lot of tools. So I've got it. I mean, obviously, I'm not a Boston Red Sox fan, so that's going to take some of the points away. But no, I've got to say a 7 or 8 out of 10. I mean, the dude's electric, but you have to temper expectations because, like, okay, a kid coming in with this prospect pedigree and the situation that Boston is. I was even just watching the Clubhouse today, that Boston Red Sox Netflix documentary, rewatching a couple episodes of that to kind of catch up on where I stopped a month or two ago. And yeah, I mean, this fan base in Boston, they're a winning culture. They want to win. They don't like where they're at. They don't like where they've been the last couple of years. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on there on the kid. But yeah, temper your expectations because every rookie's going to go through his rough patches. But no, the dude's got a lot of tools, and I think he's destined for a lot of good things. So, 7 out of 10.
Yeah, that would be the hope, I guess, if you're Boston, is that he's just gonna get up here and start raking. For better or worse, that's always the expectation for your number one prospect when you call him up. Got a standing ovation yesterday, which is always nice. Like in the thought is nice, but then sometimes you get there and you're like, oh, did we jinx him? Like, did this just
Yeah.
make it like too real for this, sometimes 19, 20, 21-year old kid? Uh,
Do it after he gets the first base hit. Like, add to the moment in that way, not the first AB. Let the kid focus.
Yeah, it's like, man, that would take you out of your rhythm. You kind of feel like, and maybe it did. He went 0 for 4. I did have a question for you on how they handled his debut. They went into extra innings in Roman Anthony's debut. He had an at bat. He was supposed to in extra innings. They pinch hit for him with Rob Refsnyder. Uh, I have a couple of thoughts on that, and then I'll let you talk. I see both trains of thought. The first train is like he's the number one prospect. You want him to have high pressure at bats early to see what he's got, and I do get that, and I see that, and you could definitely talk me into that. The other side of that is, hey, we just took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees. We're now in extras against a Rays team that's kind of clicking. I'd like to win the game, and Rob Refsnyder in this moment, Alex Cora at least thought that was the best option to go win a baseball game. So I guess it is a tough balance of like development versus trying to win a baseball game. It is a lot of pressure, I guess, to put on a guy in his major league debut to like, hey, go walk us off real quick in extras. Where do you land on that?
I mean, you have to look at what the Red Sox are still trying to do. What's the ultimate goal of their season? Yeah, they're 33 and 36 as of yesterday's standings, but where are they trying to be? They're trying to win the AL East or at least be in the wild card hunt, and they're only 8.5 back from the Yankees. And like you said, they just took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees, so they took some ground back, and they're only 4 back from Tampa when they're playing this game. So, yeah, I mean, you've got to be able to go for the win there, because every game that you can scratch and claw back might be the reason why you may make a playoff spot or may make a wild card spot come September or October. So yeah, no, play the veteran, play the guy that has the experience of doing it. Obviously, I haven't watched the game. I haven't seen who was pitching and if Rob Refsnyder's better splits than what Roman Anthony has shown down in the minors. But at the end of the day, like, you're trying to win a baseball game. As of June 10th or June 9th, when that occurred, 2025, Roman Anthony probably wasn't your best answer, and Rob Refsnyder probably was. Not to say that Rob Refsnyder's a better baseball player than Roman Anthony, or better baseball player than what Roman Anthony will be. But day in time, Rob Refsnyder gave you the best chance to win, and I'm all for that, especially knowing that this team is not punting on their season just yet. They're still too close in the thick of it in this race to kind of punt and say, okay, yeah, we need to develop the kid, but if they threw the kid out there and he doesn't produce, and now you're just playing the kids and then they're not producing, then that turns into a developmental year, another developmental year that Boston Red Sox fans don't want.
Yeah, you play to win the games. Cora, it kind of feels like, is coaching like he's trying to keep his job, which
Absolutely.
it feels like in the past, Cora has kind of gotten a pass on some stuff because he's been highly revered as like one of the great baseball minds, and all these other things. He's untouchable, he's unfireable, all this stuff. I think some of that definitely in Boston has kind of gone away. I mean, they're like exactly 500 over their last like 3 years. If you aggregate all of those 3.5 years, it just feels like Cora right now is kind of coaching for his life. And so there's some decisions that you look at in some of those games. I mean, the Rob Refsnyder pinch hitting there as an example, that maybe you don't do if you're 15 games over 500. If the Red Sox are clicking the whole year, you're 15 games over 500, you call up Roman Anthony, he's got a shot to win in his debut. You're like, all right, we're going to let it roll here. And if we lose, we're 14 games over 500. But when you're fighting and clawing for like a last spot, last AL wild card spot, even this
Everything
early,
matters.
every game kind of counts. So
Yep.
the other guy they got called up. It feels bad to call him the other guy, but he's not the number one prospect in baseball. It's Kansas City's Jack Caglianone, who came up and was ripping the ball all over the place and went 0 for 4 in his debut. I don't think he had a exit velocity below 100 miles an hour in his debut. Went
Yeah.
went 0 for 4. Did have a 4-hit day the other night as we record this. Seems like he's there. A lot less pressure out in Kansas City. It's a lot smaller market, and the team is kind of clicking.
Yep.
What's your level of excitement for Jack Caglione?
Yeah. So I had actually had a chance to see some of Jack Caglione. I went back and watched some of the highlights of the two games or what, the 4 games or whatever he's played now. And I mean, I love the dude's swing. I'm loving his ability to stay on fastballs. After I saw him rip a 95 mile an hour sinker, and then come back the next at bat and rip a 98 mile an hour fastball, and then stay on it on a curveball and a sweeper later for on the 4-for-4 day. I mean, obviously that's just one game, one sample size. Can't overreact to that, but the the dude's got a good bat, and I think that bat's going to play anywhere he goes. So I'd have to say an 8, just because he's got maybe a couple more games of sample size than Roman Anthony's had. And again, less pressure. That team is above 500. They're 9 games back of Detroit. I don't think anybody's catching Detroit, but Kansas City is firmly in that wild card race, especially with them clicking right now. So at this point, let the kid play. And it's a different situation in Kansas City. But like you said, it's a lot less pressure. So that's why it's a different situation.
Yeah, it's not that, Kansas City wants to win less than Boston, but it is like the media there is a little bit more forgiving and understanding, we'll say, than the Boston media. Uh, he's Caglione is ripping the ball all over the place. He's got a 92.9 mile an hour average exit velocity since coming up. Uh, His first at bat, I believe, was he ripped it into the gap, and Victor Scott made a hell of a play to like rob a double. I
See, that's
kind of
Victor
feels
Scott,
like,
one of the fastest men in baseball. So
yeah, hit it to the wrong spot. So yeah,
sounds
maybe a
like metal.
life lesson for my man Caglione not to hit it at Victor Scott. It feels like his swing will play. It feels like his eye is going to play pretty well. I think long term, both Roman Anthony and Caglione are going to be successful.
Mhm.
I think Caglione probably will figure it out first, like at a major league where you feel comfortable saying, okay, this guy's a major leaguer, he's going to stay. I think Caglione, at least from the very limited major league at bats that we've seen from both of them, Caglione has looked more comfortable than Roman
Yep.
Anthony has. Early. It's early. Roman Anthony
Yeah.
has like 7 career at bats at time of recording. Caglione has like a handful of games, but Caglione just looks more comfortable to me
Yep.
at the plate. Whether that's
Defensively, that's a completely different story. But Pasquantino's got first base covered for a while, and then that becomes another conversation where we could talk about the Kansas City Royals. It's okay. Do you want Caglione at first, or do you trust him out in right field? And what do you do with Vinny Pasquantino if you don't trust Caglione out in right field?
yeah, you could do the same with Boston. Boston is in the interesting situation where they almost have too many major league bats, and you would look at trading one or two to get an arm because Lord knows Boston needs some pitching help in a bad way. Uh, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I think the more we talk about it, the more a deadline episode makes sense for me. So
Yeah. There's
keep a
too many
lookout for
teams
that.
in the hunt, and I kind of side on the fact of there's probably only going to be 2 or 3 teams that actually have assets worth selling. But I think this is a deadline, like you'll see in the episode whenever we make it. There's probably going to be a lot of lateral moves for a lot of these teams trying to shift their rosters around to, if they're got a surplus of bats, try to get an extra pitcher and vice versa. So I think there's going to be a lot of lateral moves this deadline.
Yeah, just some change up the mojo a little bit.
Hmm.
Maybe that's what the Braves need. See, it all circles back
Need
to
a
the
lot of that one.
Braves. Let's move to some players of the week. We'll end the episode on some quick hitters. Why don't you go NL players of the week first, Justin?
Okay, well, let me start off with the one that's going to pain me the most. So, for the position player of the month, for the position National League pitch. Let me just start over. So, for the National League position player of the week,
I give that
I've been
sentence a
doing too
B
many of these
minus.
videos. Yes. For the National League position player of the week, it pains me, but I've got to go the New York Mets' Pete Alonso. The big polar bear. I'm not going to say his other name. Then again, we've talked about Reese McGuire.
I'll
So
say
Big
it.
Meat Pete.
Yeah.
There's not even competition when you look at the last 8 days. A 382 batting average, a 971 slug, a 293 WRC plus, 6 home runs over that time, 10 runs scored, 18 RBIs. The dude's just on a tear right now, and that is including a -1 defensive WAR
Yeah.
in his game. So the dude has a pretty good positive WAR despite the -1 WAR. He's part of the main reason why the Mets are winning games right now because Juan Soto's not doing anything. I mean, Pete Alonso's on a tear this week and definitely my National League position player of the week. And then again, go back to being a biased Braves fan. There was 4 really tough options to choose, but I've got to go Chris Sale for the National League pitcher of the week. He's the only good thing happening for my Atlanta Braves right now, really. I mean, he was 1-0 in 2 games started, 13 innings pitched with a 138 ERA. The great surprising stat out of that was a 14.5 K per 9 in those 2 starts. He was tied for first with obviously 3 other guys with a .6 WAR, and he's and just fun note for anybody that cares, he's only thrown 1 changeup in his last 3 starts. Obviously, that third
Hmm.
start does not count towards this week award, but he's only thrown 1 changeup in 3 starts, which is not like Chris Sale. He's really gotten away from using the changeup. He's throwing the slider 51% of the time as of the start that he just made. Not sure where the numbers ended up after the start, but 51% slider percentage, and the fastball is probably at like 38, and he's not throwing the changeup at all. Still getting outs with two main pitches. So Chris Sale, my National League Pitcher of the Week.
It's always funny to me, the pitchers that they land at a new spot, or maybe a new season starts, or maybe even midseason in the case of Chris Sale. And the pitching coach will just walk up to him and they're like, hey, what if you throw your bad pitch less and your really good pitch more? And they're like, oh, what a great idea. And then they just go out and dominate. That feels like
Yeah.
that happens periodically. It's Sale, obviously, this week or this season. Uh, Griffin Canning, I think they were like, yo, dude, stop throwing your changeup so often. So maybe changeups are just out. But
Yeah.
that is always
Changeups
funny
are
to
out,
me.
splitters are in, but obviously neither one of those guys have splitters.
Yeah.
And Griffin Canning was a Brave.
Yeah. Well, look at him now.
I know.
I would like to talk about Pete Alonso for a second from the perspective of he's in another contract year. He's going to be in the exact same situation he was last year, looking for a long term deal. He's having a hell of a season. We got to give him that. However, he is
Throw it again.
still a fairly unathletic, not great fielding first baseman, but you can pretty much pencil in 40 home runs, 110 RBIs, give or take. There's value there, but if he didn't get the contract last time, I mean, is he gonna get a long term this time? I like 4 years. He's gonna be 31, so you're gonna sign him 5 years, puts him through age 36. He's not gonna want 4 years. He's gonna want 6 years, so that gets you to 37. On you know, it's interesting. It's gonna be interesting to watch where that contract kind of lands. I think,
Yep.
but
Yeah, and you'd even look at who might would even be in the running for a bat like that, because you have multiple different teams that might would need first baseman. But again, like in my little player of the week talk here, he's got a -1 defensive WAR just this week defensively. So
yeah,
do you really want him manning first base? Boston Red Sox might want to get rid of Casas and replace him with Pete Alonso. But I don't think they're going to be that desperate to do so, because Casas is still a better. He's not amazing defensively, but he's a better defender than what Pete Alonso is. And there's a lot of teams now that are starting to take or might start taking the roster construction route of, we're going to have rotational DHs. We're not going to hire somebody to be a DH only, like a Marcell Ozuna, like we have in Atlanta. There's going to be 2 or 3 guys around baseball that will do that. Shohei Ohtani will be one of them because of the pitching
yeah.
aspect of it. Marcell Ozuna will obviously be another, because the dude overall rakes, even with the current hip injury that he has. So there's a lot of teams that are not wanting to pencil somebody in to be their DH only, and they want that to be a roster spot that they can rotate guys in and out of and give guys days off. And so Pete is probably going to have to move towards DH only, and that's going to restrict value as well on the open market. But the bat plays, and it's another big contract year. But I don't see anything larger than maybe a 3-year deal coming Pete's way this offseason.
Yeah, I could see a short deal with a high AAV. I'm gonna read to you some of the other first baseman and DH options coming up in the off season, just to like get our head around who he's kind of competing against. And I'll read these off in order of age. It'll be Paul Goldschmidt, Ozuna, Yandy Diaz is in theory a free agent. Uh, he's 34. Kyle Schwarber's 33. Ryan O'Hearn is 32. Alonso's 31. Luis Arias, his contract is up. And then Josh Naylor's the other one. That's a pretty deep class. Like, if you're like, man, what if I don't want to give Alonso a 5th year, but I'll give Ryan O'Hearn 2 and get
Yep.
80% of what Pete Alonso would give, or even 75%.
And Naylor, because of the age, I think is a pretty intriguing option too.
Yeah, Naylor might get a bag from somebody. Arias is there. I mean, there's options, right? It's not like he's the only guy
Hmm.
that's a free agent that you're like, oh man, you know, he's the only first baseman on the market. He's not. I mean, there's other guys that he's maybe the best one. You could make an argument, but he's
Hmm.
not the only one. And with age, you would maybe even argue he's not the best option in that group. So it'll be
Well, and
interesting
then
to see
you've
where that
also got to
lands.
look at too, just running through all those names that you said, those are every single one of those teams that are losing that first baseman would probably play in that same market. And of those, which would be the ones to really want to offer Pete Alonso? Obviously, the Mets would probably lowball an offer, kind of like they did this year again, to have him back because he's been there. But I don't really see a ton of options for a Pete Alonso, and it's probably only going to be two or three teams, and that's going to again restrict value.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where all that lands as we get closer to it. Paul Goldschmidt to me is the wild card because he's old enough he could just up and retire, and I don't think
Hmm.
anybody would bat an eye. But he's also young enough that I could definitely see a team giving him 2 more years and being like, "Hey, man, our window is now, and we happen to need a righty bat slash first baseman. Uh, you're the guy here for a minute." He's the wild card to me. It'll be interesting to see where Alonso lands. I would like to think that he would get 4 years because I think there is value to, okay, we can pencil in 35, 40, 45 home runs a year and 100 plus RBIs. At the end of the day, you're still trying to drive runs in, and he does that at a pretty high level. So
Hmm.
let's move on to my players of the week. After that tangent, we're going to do pitcher of the week first. I have Detroit Tigers. Jack Flaherty is here. He had 2 starts, 12 innings pitched in the 2 starts. He had 1 earned, 13 strikeouts, and 4 walks. That's a 146 batting average against. It's a 190 FIP. Detroit's got something happening out there with their pitching between Scooble and Flaherty and all the pen pieces, and it's just going right. Everything is going right for Detroit. We say it every week. I didn't really expect this level of come out party for Detroit, but they are here and they are pitching well. They are hitting well. Things are just going well. So Jack Flaherty is our pitcher of the week. And then Justin, I'm going to ask for a tiebreaker here. I got
Okay,
two
let's
names
do it.
for you. One of them's an Angel, which is genuinely shocking, and the other one is Aaron Judge. And I'll list the stats for you here. To me, it's a dead heat. Joe Adell had a 289 WRC plus, 5 home runs, 8 RBIs, a 1.423 OPS. Dude was mashing out in Anaheim. But then Aaron Judge had a 288 WRC plus with just 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, 7 walks. 2 of those, I believe, are intentional. A 1.427 OPS. He hit 450 at a 577 on base percentage, which is wild. Which one of those two? Those are my two things that I bring to you.
It's hard. It's hard not to go with Aaron Judge, but I've got to give it to Joe Adell. Like, when is Joe Adell ever probably going to get this award in his life? And the Angels are 6-4 in their last 10, and the Yankees are 5-5. So, winner goes to the one who wins more games, and Joe Adell mashing the way that he is part of the Angels winning more games than they are losing out of their last 10 over this week. So, Joe Adell would be my choice.
Yeah, all right. You heard it here first. My player of the week is Justin's Joe Adell. Uh, yeah, I mean,
Coached by Ron Washington.
he's just raking. And it feels kind of bad to say, but it is kind of out of nowhere because he came up. He was a pretty highly regarded prospect for a minute, and it just hasn't happened for a while. There was the like he didn't run out a grounder at some point this season, and you felt like Angel fans were kind of over him, but now he's kind of mashing, so it feels like they're back in on him. They're kind of winning some games. They're sneakily kind of sneaking back into like being in the graphic when you show the on the bubble teams. for the wild card race at this point, which is a lot better than they normally do at this time of year, if we're being honest, Angels fans. Um, yeah, I don't know. Just a hell of a week from Joe Adell. Aaron Judge, though, give him some flowers. I mean, it's a two-man race for the MVP. It's him and Cal Raleigh. We talked about Cal Raleigh last week. What Aaron Judge is doing is genuinely insane, and I don't think people grasp how spectacular it is that a guy that's like 6'7", 280 is hitting for average, is taking his walks, he's not swinging out of his shoes. Normally the power guys you don't get a lot of average from, but he is having a hell of a season.
Yeah. Do I say he's having a Barry Bonds like season where we might start talking about Aaron Judge at the end of his career as one of the greatest hitters of all time? I mean, like Aaron Judge is quietly, surprisingly, as a Yankee, quietly being one of the best hitters we've probably ever seen. So, and there's only one player to beat him to what 30 home runs versus the Red Sox, and that's Babe Ruth. And it took
Yep.
him 90 something games, and Judge was 107. I remember seeing that on Sunday Night Baseball this past week. So, Aaron Judge mashing one of the best players in baseball and somehow quietly doing it for one of the teams that America loves or hates.
Yeah, it's either one of the two. And I guess if you're a Judge fan, you're kind of loving it. Let's end the episode here. Some quick hitters. I'm going to just give Justin a topic, and he's going to rate 1 to 10 for either the fan base or baseball fans in general. Level of concern, level of excitement, whatever that is. Some of those we've already talked about. There will be a few new ones along the way. But let's start with Philly. What's your level of concern for the Philadelphia Phillies?
I've got to go a 3 out of 10. I'm not concerned about them at all. And if you're a Philly fan, you shouldn't be either. This is just one of those tough stretches. Happens in the dog days of summer, and it's early in the dog days of summer. So you're looking at probably a 8-2 record at some point here in the next week or two anyway. So yeah, 3.
The Toronto Blue Jays turning it on. Level of excitement for them as their fan base.
Level of excitement, I've got to go 6 out of 10. Kind of like we talked about, the offense is mashing, but the real question is, can they be consistent in that the rest of the season? If so, great. The pitchers outside of Jose Barrios haven't been there, so can they keep up the mashing? That's why I'm going 6.
Okay. Tampa Bay, same division. They're kind of clicking. They've made their way to third place. Level of excitement for them.
Got to go 5 out of 10 for Tampa. This, I guess, is me hating Tampa when I don't really hate Tampa at all. I just don't think overall they have the tools to compete. Now we say that every year, and they're still in the race with a very small budget. But no, this team is a year or two away from competing again with the young guys on that roster. But they're exciting to watch. They're playing good baseball right now. Their pitching staff is always good, so they're always going to be in and around it. So 5 out of 10.
All right. We'll pair these two guys up. Roman Anthony and Jack Caglianone getting called up. Excitement just as a general baseball fan.
As a general baseball fan, 7 out of 10. Both of these guys are extremely talented. They're the top 3 prospects in baseball because I think Caglianone was number 3. Don't quote me on it, but both guys are tremendous. Caglianone's bat plays. Roman Anthony's just an amazing 5-tool athlete. So both are going to be exciting. Caglianone's going to play more than Roman Anthony and probably do more damage than Roman Anthony currently. But while they're up, they're exciting pieces. So have fun watching them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how their careers go. All right, I'll give you a homer one. As a Braves fan, Jurickson Profar is 19 games away from returning. Level of excitement for that.
Surprisingly, I will say 6 out of 10. This is me personally. Braves Twitter would probably disagree because they want him 100% gone. Obviously, would love to have that money back from the contract, but if he is able to put up a 100 WRC plus, which again, for you stat guys or ones that aren't stat guys, that is a complete league average player. If he can consistently put a 100 WRC plus up, that is better than what we're getting out of Verdugo or Eli White or anybody that has played left field for the Atlanta Braves this season. Yeah, it's probably the PEDs helped out with some of the performance last year whenever he was in San Diego in that career year, and he's probably not that ever again. But if he's an average player, it's better in left field than what we have currently. So,
Yeah. Well, I believe we have one more topic to cover here, and then we'll call it a day. We're going to talk about Fernando Tatis for a second. He has kind of looked broken, especially this season. It looks like his lower half just isn't connected with his upper half. Obviously, still a phenomenal athlete and still performing, I mean, pretty well, if we're honest. Uh, I saw a stat. I'll throw it up on the screen. Justin, you have it in front of you. It's barrel percentage by year in his career, and I'll let you guys read it. But for those of you guys maybe that just have this on in the background or something, it drops considerably after he got popped for steroids. Uh, is there anything to that? Are you concerned maybe as a Padres fan about that? Are you concerned maybe as just a general Tatis fan about that? Is it nothing and his swing has kind of been broken for the last couple of years? What do you kind of take from that and having watched him for his whole career?
yeah, when you look at Fernando Tatis, I think fans should be concerned about the barrel rate or the barrel percentage, excuse me. I mean, the guy, when he puts the bat on the ball and it's in that barrel, he does some amazing things, whether he had steroids or not. I kind of lean on the side of steroids obviously can add muscle, but they don't add skill. So at the end of the day, you still need to be skilled to put the bat on the ball. One of my mentors, Tom House, has publicly stated he tried steroids when he was pitching in the 70s and he threw 84 miles an hour as a 165-pound dude, took steroids, got to 215 pounds, and still threw 84 miles an hour as a reliever in the big leagues. So steroids didn't seem to help him. And it only hurt his knees and had him get double knee replacement surgery. So I kind of lean on the side of most performance enhancing drugs, or at least the steroids that like we attribute the Barry Bonds and all those guys to taking, probably don't help as much as you think they do. Obviously, it helps with muscle mass, and some of that does play. But at the end of the day, those bats are slower. So it still needs to take extreme skill, extreme talent to be able to put the bat on the ball and do it quickly. So the barrel rate, I don't think has anything to do with being popped by steroids, but I do think the changes that he has made with his dad, Fernando Tatis Sr., is looking more and more like the swing is broken. And so they need to kind of go back and change that swing and get the barrel rate back up because whenever he's putting a barrel in the baseball, he is a special player. And right now, he just kind of seems like a broken Padre.
Yeah, I will say it's not just the barrel percentage that is dropped. Obviously, that's the thing that you kind of look at. You're like, well, if he's barreling the ball, maybe he's just getting a little unlucky, but the barrel percentage is down. So then you kind of look at, well, are the rest of his stats kind of down? And they are, which is tough. He is in a bright spot post PEDs, striking out less, not a lot less, but less for his career. Part of that probably is getting older. He's seen all of these guys. He is more used to the major league speed. I've heard hitters before talk about it takes a minute to just get used to. In the minors, when you face a major league arm, that's the only guy in that series likely that you're facing that's of that caliber. When you get to the big leagues, it suddenly is, oh, all of these guys
It's every
kind of
five
have
days,
that
every day.
swing and miss devastating pitch. And sometimes they have two, and sometimes they have three. and then it's a problem. But he is striking out less. He is walking slightly less, I would say. But also his batting average has gone down. His hard hit percentage has gone down. His on base percentage has gone down. His WAR as a whole has maintained, give or take. His big year was right before he got popped for PEDs. Go figure. Shout out Jerks and Profar once again.
Yeah.
I would say he is still an above average player. I don't think there's any question about that. This year, as we record this, he's got a 126 WRC plus. He's hitting 260. He's got 13 home runs so far this year. He's there. Like he's performing. He's an above average hitter. He's at 2.6 F4 at the beginning of June. But it feels like a step down kind of from what we expected because I think what we all expected from Tatis early in his career, especially after that 2021 season where he had a 6.8 WAR, and after the 2020 season where in 59 games he had 3.3 WAR, you're like, man, the comp would have been last year's Bobby Witt, where he just is raking, and we just kind of expected for that to happen for a peak of maybe 6 or 7 years. And post PEDs, that just has not occurred. And I kind of think that this is just going to be what he is the rest of his career. Is a really, really good baseball player that's not quite to the peak of the expectation that we put on him after his two breakout years in 2020 and 2021. Is that a fair thing to kind of surmise from all this?
Yeah, I think that's a fair comparison and a fair thing to take from it. I mean, the question that we can begin to ask, especially because of the ownership issues that San Diego Padres have, is that contract worth it, especially in that market? Like San Diego's got money. And it's not a small market by means, but it's also not a huge market either. And so is that value, or is there value there for the contract that he now is under? That's obviously Fernando Tatis can be the one to answer that question, but right now, in my opinion, it's not living up to the value that he's already signed.
Yeah. The other part of this that I was thinking about is as a young player, he was a shortstop, which is a pretty premium position. Now he's in a
Like
corner
everyone on the
outfield
Padres,
spot,
but
which is a little deeper. Uh, and so it's harder to kind of separate yourself. You still feel pretty good about it. He's still an above average hitter, but it's a lot easier to find an above average hitter at a corner outfield spot versus at short. Now, the defense, at least early in his career at short, was not amazing, and that's part of the reason he's now in the outfield.
yep.
But it does make him a little bit more replaceable being out in the outfield. I think that's fair to say. I don't think you can push back on that too much. There just is more players that you could sign or trade for or have that are
Yeah.
comparable to what he kind of brings to your roster.
And not to get into a full San Diego Padres offseason rebuild talk episode this late in a podcast, but they do potentially have some flexibility with a Cronenworth probably coming to an end of control here pretty soon. You've got, or no, Cronenworth signed the extension, but I think that's coming close to an end. Obviously, you talked about Luis Arise coming to an end. Bogarts is there long term. Machado's there long term, but Bogarts could slide to second. Do we see even a Mookie Betts type move where they move him back to the infield and try to replace him in the outfield? Again, that's questions that only the Padres brass and only Fernando Tatis can answer. But yeah, it's getting tough out here for the Tatis household, or maybe even for Padres fans, because he's not living up to the expectation that contract says. And again, he's not a bad player by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not the caliber of player that we kind of expected after that 2018 to 2021 or 2019 to 2021. That Fernando Tatis was looking like he was going to be what Juan Soto is now, minus this kind of stretch he's got early on with his Mets career.
Yeah. He's for those of you maybe that don't know the contract off the top of your head, it's 14 years for 340 million. He signed that right before he got popped for PEDs. Again, go figure. Shout out Profar. Uh, yeah, it's a lot of money to pay. Now there is other parts to this that we haven't talked about. He is young. Even today as we record this, this is his age 26 season. Um, we talk about him like he's 30, 31. It's because he's been around for a while, but
Still got a lot of time to turn this around.
yeah, he's young and he brings kind of like an it factor to the ballpark. Like, even with the numbers not being what they could be, there is still an aspect of like he's kind of the face of that franchise,
Yep.
and you're kind of buying a ticket to go watch Tatis play more than you are, say, a Jake Cronenworth
And
as an
that's the
example.
jersey you're buying too. So the Padres make the money off of that, and he's a top 10 jersey seller in all of Major League Baseball. So Padres are still getting their value from the business side of things with that too. So he is the face of your franchise. It's still a good deal to have someone like that. If I had Ronald Acuna for another 14 years at 230 or excuse me 300 something million, I would take that in a heartbeat. So because I'm looking at probably your Soto level deal now once this
Yeah.
next deal comes to an end.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess if you're watching this, let us know down in the comments section. What are you concerned? Should we be concerned? Is he going to turn it around? He's young. By age 33, he could be an inner circle Hall of Famer, or we could be, man, what a terrible contract that is.
Yeah,
Because
or hey, is he in the middle? Is he a Hall of Very Good?
yeah,
You never know. Since everybody's getting inducted to that one on Twitter lately.
yeah, they have popped up for me more on Twitter in the last like month than ever, and I like follow them. Like I followed them a year ago or so. Never saw anything from them. Now, like every time I log in, I see a tweet from them, and I'm like,
Hall
good
of
grief.
Very Good.
Yeah. Well, if you made it to the end of the video, thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe. Justin, give them a player to comment if they made it to the end of the episode, and we'll pin them.
Yeah, so it is 19 games away from the best PED steroid user in all of baseball coming back, Jerkson Profar. So go ahead and comment Jerkson Profar in the comments if you made it to the end of the video.
Yep. Thank you guys for watching, and we will catch y'all in the next one. Take it easy.
Peace.